Hello students and welcome to the class. I am your history teacher Manoj Arora. Today we will be starting with the next part of the chapter, that is Kings and Chronicles. But before I start the chapter, I hope you all will be fine at your homes, taking care of your family as well as yourself. If you remember in the last videos, we had studied a lot about the Mughals. Why would they make these chronicles? We also studied about the Mughal court. We studied about the imperial buildings made by them. We also had studied about the various aspects of the Mughals. Now today we will be studying about the personal life, the individual life of those Mughal kings, the imperial household. It was called harem. This word harem had been taken from a Persian word harem, Harem, which meant a sacred place. And harem, it means the domestic world of the Mughals. Now this entire harem would include the king's relatives, mothers, stepmothers, real brothers and sisters, stepbrothers and sisters, aunts, and the nearby relatives. Those all would be living in that area. The household would include all these people, the concubines also. Polygamy was very much common among the Mughals. Now the Mughals had used the marriages in order to cement, to make strong the bonds between the various castes. For example, Mughals knew that Rajputs were the great warriors, and rather than fighting with them and rather than defeating them, he had got marriage relations. The daughter of Bharmal Kachwaha, Jodhabai, she got married to Akbar, which had cemented the relations between the Mughals and the Rajputs. And after that, there is a long history that the Mughals started incorporating, assimilating the Rajputs in their nobility also. So that rather than fighting, the Mughals always tried to control the relations in this way. Because in earlier times, in this time, gifting up a territory would accompany gifting a daughter also with the territory in marriage. The daughter was married to those kings which would make the relation strong forever. The royal wives had various categories. They were begums, they were agas, and they were agachas. On what basis they were divided or categorized? The one who would be noble by birth and would be bringing a lot of cash and valuables would be the begum, and those who would be lesser by birth in nobility, they were lesser noble by birth, they would be agas, and lesser agas would be called agachas or concubines. Now this status did not remain the same forever. It was the wish of the king that he would convert any aga or agacha to a begum or begum to agas. It was his wish that he loved someone too much, anybody could be raised to the level of the begum. Love and motherhood played a great role. I would give an example that Mahamanga, who was the foster mother of Akbar, she not only gave advice to Akbar in the personal matter but also in the administrative matters also. Slaves did from mundane to the skilled work. Mundane means the daily work. From mundane to skilled work. Each and every work was done by the slave, and there were certain units, slave units, those who were called Khwajsaras. They had the permission to go inside the imperial household as well as outside if any news was to be transferred from inside to outside, because all the males were not allowed in this harem. Only the king, his very close relatives were allowed inside, and for everybody else, these slave eunuchs or other slaves would do the work of transferring the message to act as messengers. After Noor Jahan, the queen started controlling the resources. It was Noor Jahan who had participated in various activities. Even she participated in the architectural activities also. There were many buildings in which Noor Jahan had given her thoughts to the king in order to how the buildings are to be made. And regarding controlling the resources, the daughters of Shah Jahan, Roshanara Begum and Jahanara Begum, they would also control the resources and they would get the monthly income that was equivalent to the mansabdars. Now to that extent, the females were able to control the resources. Humayunama was written by Gulbadan Begum and it was not a eulogy. Eulogy means when you write something about the deceased or the dead. The book written by Gulbadan Begum was not a eulogy. Now Gulbadan Begum practically would be associated or connected with the 3 generations of the Mughal. She was the daughter of Babur. She was the sister of Humayun and she was the aunt of Akbar. And no doubt when Abul Fazl was commissioned by Akbar to write Akbarnama, specially Akbar had requested her aunt Gulbadan Begum to tell everything what she had in her memory in order to make Akbarnama more swift, more good. So in this way, Gulbadan Begum Humayunama is not a eulogy. All the chronicles, if you would see, they don't tell about the deceased, they tell about the policies which were prevailing at that particular time. If I talk about the imperial officials, Akbarnama had bequeathed a vision of empire. An empire which would have king at the center, where all the people around that center would be moving up and seeing that center and following the orders of that center. The king was considered supreme in the Mughals. The kingdom would be following the orders. As I said, he would be at the center, at the apex, at the top, and everybody would be following those orders. Imperial organization depended upon the various institutions. A king alone cannot manage the entire resources. A king cannot maintain the entire kingdom. He needed a lot of people. And those institutions were the corps and the officers. This nobility was extracted by the Mughals from the diverse ethnic groups. He would not fill his entire nobility with one section, one caste of the people. Now it would benefit in 2 ways. Number one, that no faction got stronger enough. No faction got stronger enough in order to stand against the king. Everybody had, the Iranis were there, the Turanis were there, Indian Muslims were there, Rajputs were there. Everybody had their representation. Now the second benefit was that all the castes felt satisfied that they had their representation in the Mughal nobility. So in this way, everybody got satisfied and the king would get his motive fulfilled, that no faction got strong enough to stand against the king or conspire against him. The Iranis had joined the Mughals in nobility to the earliest. After 1560 onwards, the Rajputs also joined up. In Rajputs, I will say Raja Todramal, who belonged to Khatri caste, and Raja Bharmal Kachwa of Amber, again the father of Jodhabai, who was the wife of Akbar. And also the Indian Muslims, those who were called the Sheikhzadas, they also became the part of the Mughal nobility. The Iranians had got importance under Jahangir. Why? Because of Noor Jahan. Because Noor Jahan herself was an Iranian, and because of that, she wanted that the nobility must be backed with her believed ones, on which she had trust upon. I hope you must have understood this chapter. I request all of you to read NCERT books. That is a must. Without that, you cannot give good exams. You have to read that book. I also request you to write your name, class, section and roll number in the comment box. If you have got any problems, do write in the comment box or come to me in the morning sessions arranged by the school. I hope you will give your maximum time to studies. Thank you very much. God bless you.